Today, I'm sitting down and having a conversation with Rafik Kheffache, the founder and CEO of Heliosand. I first met Rafik about 5 years ago when I started spending more time over in France. And when I sat down with him, the first thing he told me was he was going to invent a concentrated solar power machine, put them in deserts to melt desert sand into much larger particles so they could be used to make concrete. I was like, what is this guy talking about? And from a market standpoint, I was like, this doesn't really make much sense to me. But the more I got to know Rafik and the problems he was looking to solve, I ended up becoming one of the first investors in Heliosand. Now, the desert thing didn't really work out, but what was interesting was Rafik and his team found a very interesting application for their concentrated solar power machines. And now what they're doing is they're transforming mud and other industrial waste into obsidian and glass that can be used in the construction industry. Rafik is a true inventor. He's a really fun guy and a great person. He's really dedicated to figuring out how we can create market-based solutions to make industry and industrial production much more circular. I hope you enjoy the conversation, and remember to go direct. All right, so I'm here with Rafik Kheffache.
Thank you.
All right, man, listen, let's start here. Ready?
Yeah.
Can you explain to everyone what concentrated solar power is?
Yeah, that's at the same time a difficult question and a very simple one. Let's start with simple. Yeah, so the simple answer is when you were a kid, you used to play with the lens. Once somebody gave you a lens and then you could magnify stuff. But one day you discovered that if you aim it at the sun, then you can burn stuff for free without a lighter. And this is the basic of what is concentrated solar energy. The sun is harmful itself, it's very powerful, but if you concentrate it, then it goes way higher in temperature and you can burn stuff. But it is so high that we confuse it with burning. When you concentrate light, it's something different. Because you have you see, and the more complicated way of seeing it is it's Star Wars. You know, the star or the Death Moon. What's the name of that building in Star Wars?
I don't remember.
So yeah, the Death Star. I think it's the Death Star. But so this aim that you see when you see the laser going together in one point, that's it. That's the thing. It's a very powerful beam.
Okay, so all right, so give now let's go with the difficult explanation.
Okay, the really difficult. The difficulty is you have to bend light. Okay.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah. So the question about
bending light.
Yeah, about bending light is it is difficult to explain. Basically, light is a wave, and you have to sort of make it go through another material that will respond differently. That would be transparent differently because you have different transparencies. Okay, air, water, glass, stuff like this have different transparencies, and depending on that transparency, the water would bend light differently than glass, for example. And you have to construct an object that will take the sunlight. Sunlight is going from everywhere, but most of it is straight. You have to get this and then bend it to a single point. This is where it is difficult to make at a very large scale. It is doable with a tiny glass. But once you start making large lens, you have a huge issue about its thickness, about how it shouldn't move. When larger something is, the more it moves. So that's the difficult part, is how to do it at a great scale.
Okay, so if I summarize it, the basic level is when you're a kid, you're taking the magnifying glass out and you're burning the ant on the ground. Yeah, it's the same exact thing. You're bending light from the sun, and it's the same things. What you're saying is just doing it at a much larger scale.
Yeah, that's it.
Okay, so explain to us how, when everyone thinks of solar power, right? You think of solar power panels on people's homes or on a commercial building to provide power to the electricity and other power to the the location. How is CSP different than the solar panels on your roof?
Yeah, so basically, when we think about solar energy, we think about solar panels, which is producing electricity. But solar energy is not electricity. You have to transform it. You have to get it from light, which is a wave, a beam. Okay, it's a photon. That photon comes up to you and it heats you up. And the solar panels transform that vibration into electricity. And when you transform energy, you have a loss. So solar panels, for example, would only allow you to get 20% of that solar energy. Solar energy is the vastest source of energy, by the way, on Earth. I mean, everybody agrees on that. It's way more powerful than nuclear energy or anything. But when you transform it into electricity, you have a storage problem, you have an efficiency problem, and also the living cycle of solar panels. It's just horrible. It's impossible to recycle. So that's why we thought about solar energy as heat. When you go on the beach, you feel solar energy. It is heat. And that heat, if you concentrate it, okay, it's way more powerful. And you have there 80% of the energy that you can use. Solar energy is not electricity, it is heat. That's the difference between solar panels and what's solar concentration. But as we said previously, the only way to bend light at a large scale, you can't use a lens. You use mirrors. Okay, so you've seen all of those
Mm-hmm.
huge mirrors with a tower in the middle. So those guys, because of mirrors, they can only go to 1,000 degrees max. Most of them is 3%, 300 degrees Celsius. Sorry for the Fahrenheit listeners, but it's basically it's not that hot. You cannot melt stuff with this. Okay, and then so you can only produce electricity, but also it has a 40% loss. Okay, you transform still heat into electricity.
Mm-hmm.
So solar concentration or solar energy is mostly thought of electricity, but it's not.
It's heat. Heat that you have to convert into electricity or another form of power, essentially.
Yeah, but what is causing all the issues? What's the industry doing that is wrong? It's heating up stuff. You know
Okay, so
what?
so hold on. I'm going to stop you there. I'm going to stop you there. So that was my so that now we're going to get into it because that was the next question was why don't we see more of it?
Yeah, good question. So there's two reasons for that. First reason, the most prolific industrial creators were always in the cold and with bad weather. There's no huge technical, scientifical discoveries when you're easy having the most beautiful beach in the world, fruits popping out of the tree. It's fine. So those guys had engineering challenges, not because it's fun. It was always by the constraint of nature that this. So solar energy would be thought of huge, interesting energy when where it's sunny. But unfortunately, most industries in the old time, I say, now it's going to tropical through China and through all Asia. But the heavy 19th century industry was done in the cold, Europe and the US.
So, but how does that relate back to why don't we see more CSP?
Because they've never been looking for solar energy as a
I
possibility.
got you because they don't have this. They never had the sun. They never had the sun.
Or just a little. You need a 24/7 source of energy for most industries. So that's the main reason. My opinion is that. The second reason, it's because the mindset of how do I do clean industry is just new. Before, no one cared. No one cared about what's the implication of my industry. It's just that's why it haven't never been used in that manner.
Got it. What's the industry doing wrong?
So the industry is a bit too much because there's different industries. But what the industry is doing wrong is what you're saying. I agree with what you told me last time we had lunch in Paris. It's the centralization. It's the same with anything, you know, economics, the central banks. It's the mindset, central way of thinking. No one can think otherwise than this way. So the centralization of everything. So what you said is you put the word on what I was always thinking. The centralizations of the means of production. This is your words. I have to say it's you because I cannot steal your stuff. But it's the issue. What the industry is doing wrong is that.
Right, but you made that comment around how the industry. I was referring to concentrated solar power.
Okay,
Yeah, so
exactly.
that's
To
what I want to dig into with you a
CSP.
little bit. Yeah,
So
CSP.
what the industry is doing wrong in regards to solar energy is they think about it as electricity. They think about it as a 24/7 way of having energy. And what you have to, you cannot completely reverse things. So you cannot stop the industry. The only thing you can do is hybrid the industry, put a little solar there, a little wind there, etc. And the progress to do that is very difficult. So when you're in industry, you have old ways of doing things. You need the 24/7 production. You need this, that. Some of them, I mean, the large industries are the ones having difficulty with um, having a transit into a cleaner way of production because it means destroying them in a way.
Mm-hmm.
When you talk to them about doing things differently, they can see it's not good for them.
Yeah, you need a market based approach for them to adopt anything, right? It needs to make like business sense, no matter what the headlines say or what ESG reports, whatever bullshit they sign, right? They're just not going to adopt anything unless they can make it make sense to their bottom line, right?
Yeah, it's because it's their job. It's their job to protect the company and make money, and so they will not indulge in something that is not in that sense. As a survival mode,
Yeah, sure,
everybody has the same instinct.
sure. How did you get involved with CSP? Like, what brought you on that journey?
So the first time I heard of it was in south of France when I was in high school. So I was I was an intern. What's the English of that? I was sleeping where I had school. I was boarding
Oh,
school,
boarding school, yeah.
in a Catholic, very strict place. And the guy who was surveilling the kids was an ancient was an engineer previously into the largest solar oven on Earth. So it's in south of France, and he took us there. He was a very mean guy, but he was a good engineer. And when we all got our degrees, he bought us dinner at a very fancy restaurant. He was nice to us. He said, "I'm putting down the mask," and we saw who he was. And he said, "This is one of the most beautiful things um, in the world." He took us there. He showed us the oven, the solar oven that can go to all the way to 5,000 degrees. And I thought to myself, why is this for? What is this for? Who's going to use it? Is anybody using it? Is it just research? And it was only that. And the guy was so sad at his work, which is one of the greatest jobs I would have loved to have, an engineer over there. He was so sad. He wanted to work with humans, so that's why he went to surveying schools. So he had more human interactions. But this is the guy who brought me this, and since it have been going into my head. But I was in college, etc. I was like computer science, physics, electronics, art rooms. I was in nanotechnology, artificial intelligence. I was all in this. I was like, I was doing the same mistake as everybody else. Low tech is not interesting. That's what I was thinking, and I forgot about it
What brought you?
until
What? Yeah, go ahead.
I discovered Marcus Kaiser, a guy who invented a 3D printer using solar energy and only
Solar energy and desert sand. All right,
Yeah.
dig into that for me. Unpack that.
So the guy invented a machine with just a solar lens that was big like this, a bubble, and then he brought it into the desert and then did cut. He did a CNC, 2D CNC, and cut sunglasses out of wood. And then he thought maybe I can make a larger lens and even melt Sahara sand. So it's the Leonardo da Vinci of low tech. Okay, is the guy. I have not. So this spoke to me as a sci-fi thing. I was like, yes, if I had to take just one container on a boat and choose what I put in there, and I'll be landing on a beach where there's only Sahara sand and salted water. That's all I have. I need one container and I need to build a civilization out of it. Because 3D printing with just sun and Sahara Desert, just, you know, sparked my imagination into, yes, I can desalt water, I can create lakes, I could desalinate water and then create desalted lakes. I could build bridges, towns, all the sci-fi stuff. And with what? With replicating what he was doing, in fact, that guy, 3D printing with solar energy was putting a lens that would melt a surface of sand. Okay. And then you add another surface of sand and then you melt again, etc. And by doing this step by step, he 3D printed his way into a medium, what we call sintering with laser. Sometimes you have powder that is melted with laser with CNC. So those are, by the way, the most precise 3D printing. But he did that object out of nowhere with no energy needed, just for free, clean. And this is what brought me back to it. I was like, yes, I know that tech. And I was in need of real stuff. I was doing crypto, fully virtual. I was dealing with, imaginary stuff. And there was so much scam into that world. I was like, I was fed up. It was 2017 when I was in that startup world, but I wanted to be an entrepreneur, but it didn't make sense to go and bullshit people on a coin. I was like, no, thank you. I need something else. And this guy arrived with his tech. I mean, it's not tech, he's an artist and he did it
Sure.
open source. He was like, here you go, guys, go invent stuff. So I took it and I never let it go since.
That's great. No, that was about the time that you and I met.
Yeah, exactly exactly at that time. And you did participate to the projects and yeah, it's a fantastic journey.
Yeah, no, it's been fun getting to know each other. And I remember the first time we were talking, and I was asking you like, what do you like to do? And you're just like, I like to build stuff. And I'm like, I love engineers and
Yeah,
tinkers and people that like to build stuff. And I think one of the things that always stood out to me, which we'll get into here, is this important of working with constraints and having this really truly kind of hacker maker mindset is critical to invent, especially when you talk about industrial tech, right? So, all right, let's move over to Heliosand. So, I'm just going to read what you have on the website here, the a quick description, okay? And then I'll let you break it down for the audience. So it says we offer a cost-effective and decarbonized method to recycle non-recyclable and mineral waste into valuable materials using a new solar energy solution.
yeah. It's marketing, Jordan. This is marketing. I'm not the one in charge of this. Come on, don't put it on my. In charge of, I had to accept to adhere to. It's blah blah blah, renewable energy, circular economy, and stuff like this.
All right, so let's not do the marketing speak. So I'll prompt you here because I have some insight into what you're building. You're just building a really 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 big lens to use the heat from the sun,
Yeah,
to melt things. So I'll let you take it from there.
yeah. So melting stuff with solar energy is that you make lava. Okay, anything you put in there will melt because, for example, iron or tungsten or aluminium have different temperatures to melt. But then it changes colors and it becomes liquid. So it becomes white. The hotter it is, the more white it becomes, and red when it start melting. So with those different temperatures, you have in between everything else. And what people don't talk about or don't know is mineral. For example, the only one we know is glass. When you melt glass to make objects, everyday life objects. So from there, you can see that if you use solar energy as heat, it has to do with things that are very high temperature to melt stuff. Doing this, as you said previously, directly into the industry is difficult because the old mindset, etc. We had to come up with something new, a new application. And not only in a new application in a technical sense, but in a business ethical sense. How can we make the maximum amount of money by solving a maximum amount of problems? Okay, that was the constraints, as you said. Mm-hmm. So here we have a huge source of energy that no one will use in the traditional industry. So we need to prove it because we can't by penetrating those old heavy stuff, which is a difficult thing to do also technically. Let's go invent our own way of making money. And obviously, the first thing that came to my mind is our generation. Our raw material, the thing we're making money out of, is trash. Is everything our grandfathers and fathers threw away. That's our duty to carry. It can look shitty, but if you're an entrepreneur and you like crazy challenge and you have that source of energy, it should be immediate. I upscale something that is dirty and expensive and I render it into an asset. So it's a civilizational liability. It's the liability of our generation. So I have the mean to transform that liability into an asset, which is it's alchemy, taking shit, making it into gold. That's the deal. And it has to be done with a clean energy, a cheap, even totally free energy and clean. So you have there the three circles. What are the three problems of humanity? Trash, waste, pollution, energy, fossil fuel, and construction. Construction, as you know, is the biggest market. I mean, real estate, roads. This is the biggest money to be made, and oil. Okay, this is the big money, and 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 it's the big environmental problem. So we we didn't mean to do that, but by having that mindset and looking totally free into a new way to have an application for solar concentration, with the all the investors, the help of you guys and all the mentors, and being able to be totally free from anyone to think of it, got us there. It wasn't intended.
So where are you starting right now? Treating. When you're talking about industrial waste, essentially.
Yesterday, it took us 4 years to create the technology, to understand the product, what we're doing, whose problem are we solving, because we spoke to everyone. Basically, if you wanted to make the most difficult startup ever, you would put it right in the middle of energy, trash, waste, and construction. It's the worst problem to solve ever.
Like the three worst industries from a business standpoint, right?
No one wants to invest into that. It's totally too much of a hassle, and they can't believe you solved it. It's also that. It's unbelievable that you found a solution. So because of that difficulty, we didn't know what do we sell, to whom. Is it construction? Is it from where do you start? So I started with the construction. Big mistake. Everybody's sending fake, contracts that are stealing our IP. Huge groups that I can't name sent us contract that just, wipes us out of the market. It's too much of a danger for them. And then we went into the energy sector. We can't be in a competitive stuff like this when you're a startup. You're gonna die. So we need to be in a creative market. Energy was out of the book, and then we came to trash, and trash is even worse than construction. Can we say this on your podcast?
You can say whatever you
it's
want,
the
man.
mafia. It's the fucking mafia, Jordan. It's the trash. You know why? So first of all, nobody knows what happened with their trash. It's a total lie. You know what? In France, you live in France, right? It's crazy. You have to put your glass and then break it, and people think it's melted to make other bottles, but it's not. It's just melted and then thrown into the sea because it's totally glass. Your bottle, when broken down into pieces, it's just sand. It's no pollution. So, and people are making money selling land on the close to the beach, saying, "Hey, you can throw your glass there." Why do you think you find so much glass into the sea? Have you been to the beach? You can see it's if you have the eye. If you put a microscope, maybe 30-40% of your sand is artificial. Sometimes it's
Is that right?
yeah. In France, south of France, you cannot imagine. La Ciotat is 100% fake sand. But people have no idea what's happening in the world, Jordan. The centralization of trash, of waste management is a catastrophe. What you do? What is the job? What is the business there? No one is allowed to throw horrible stuff into their land. This is the law.
Yes.
Except for those that have to do the job. And everybody agrees they do the dirty work literally.
Mm-hmm.
And because we pay them and they have the physical mean to say no if a cop or somebody comes to them because it's the mafia, then we let them do it. Same, you put your trash in different boxes, right? You're environmentally conscious, Jordan, are you?
I try to
Putting you
be.
on the spot.
I try to be.
Thanks for your honesty. It's very difficult to do. And it gives you that anxiety. It's my fault. I don't do this. I don't do that. But it's not. It's the industry, how the industry is built. So those guys would tell you to separate your trash, but only 10 to 20% is really recycled. Most of it, you dig a hole and put it there. And those companies are just difficult. Uh, those people who take care of this have to do it because we have no other solution. It's a trap. It's forbidden, but there's no alternative solution. So they're trapped into that business.
Okay, so
How do we?
now you're talking. Now you're talking about the alternative solution. So let's get into that.
Yeah. So, for example, the question you were asking was, what are we doing today, and
Yes.
how do we manage it? So it took us 4 years to understand who is our client, and now we're exploring the waste industry. It takes time to explore the market and the tech, and we did both in parallel. I did the startup digital method of talking to your customer until you find them. You know, this link method, or I forgot the name of that link startup method. So
Lean, yeah.
now, yeah, lean, sorry. So now we're talking to the trash, and we discovered it has to be, so the customer is somebody who is environmentally sensitive. It has to be a CEO, CTO, or markets guy who is very sensitive to the environment. That company must have a waste that is very expensive to get rid of or nearly impossible. So they shouldn't be in the old ways. So they also have to be sort of young, 40 to 50 years old maximum. All the others don't care. They pay the company, and humanity is putting waste under the carpet, literally. I mean, and or in the ocean. It's also done. It's illegal. Sometimes they do it. So we need to find a guy who's pretty young, has a horrible waste, and he has the conscience to not to pay those guys. And they're so smart that then they come to us, and instead of paying $1,000 per ton to get it thrown into the ocean or landfill, they get to pay us $300, $500. So with 1,000 ton, we can make 300,000 euros. I get it. So if I sell 300, if I sell 500, it's 500,000. But the old guys, they take you a mill. They take you a mill to get rid of $1,000 of horrible illegal waste.
Sure. So
that's what I'm doing.
Okay. So, but just to simplify it, you're utilizing the machine that you built from the ground up, which we'll talk about in a minute, the CSP machine to heat the industrial waste so it can be discarded or transformed and then discarded in a environmentally friendly way.
Mineral material doesn't burn. It's lava. You think of a volcano, okay? So you have to have rock in there, okay? Because of I'm starting to know how to explain it now that I'm telling it to you. So to make lava, you need a volcano. So the volcano is what is heat, and then you have rock. Okay. So rock in powder is actually the largest amount of waste on Earth. Where do you get it? You get it. So came to us totally as a coincidence. Water dams. Every 4 years they get those sediments locked there, and then the water dam doesn't function anymore. So they have to dig out all the sediments that came during 4 years. Okay, every water dam does this. Then you have ports and rivers and canals. They all gather mud all the time because water is moving. So you have to dig it out in order to function. So this is by far 30 to 40% of all waste produced by a nation. But trash is always something secret. Okay.
Wait, sorry. So I want to make sure I understand that 30 to 40% of what is them cleaning out dams?
Not only dams, but rivers. So you have rivers, ports, water dams, you have tunnel digging, and any destruction and cutting of rocks. If you cut rock, or if you dig a tunnel, you put water into a machine that grinds the rock. After this, you get a huge tons of mud that you have to put somewhere. And in the old times, those are neutral, it's just rock, so they throw it into the ocean. But now we realize it's a huge issue. It covers things in the bottom of the sea, so it destroys life. So now it's forbidden. But some people still do it illegally, if you pay them well. But most of them are stuck with a huge pile of mud. So we discovered that this mud, if you melt it, then it becomes lava and it's neutral. It's glass. It's basically glass. And if you put in the middle between two layers, you put any pollution. We tried everything except for nuclear. Any pollution we tried, even asbestos, it just melts down with a certain recipe. You have a dosage. And then there's atomic bond that happen between the rock and the pollution. It's not just stick into there. It has really melts and bonds atomically. Therefore, even if you reduce it in powder afterward, there is no pollution that would go out because every pollutant is busy with the glass and the minerals and the rock, is electronically too busy with those to interact with water or anything else that is around. It becomes a rock. It becomes part of the rock. For example, yesterday I had a business call. So now it took us 4 years, as I told you. Now we know whom to sell, what to sell, and how to sell it because we're getting from Miami. There's a team in Miami, an old guy from Tesla and a French guy who are helping us to sell. And now we know how to connect with that guy who is 40 to 50, who really wants to make a difference. And he has a horrible waste. It's like for you when I did just put you on the spot saying, hey, do you recycle? This guy is at this situation, but at his job.
Sure.
Okay.
I understand. Yeah, but ultimately, at the end of the day, they have to have a problem, and you have to be solving that problem.
Yeah.
Like if you want a market solution. So I want to just make sure I understand there. I understand that the audience understands. So the idea is you're taking where you're starting is you're taking anyone that's basically creating mud through their industrial processes, or it could be a government or a public entity. You're melting that down, or what you just explained, through your CSP machine, and then the end product is just a rock that can be put anywhere.
Yeah, so there's that, but there's also the pollution bit that you forgot, which is we first put a layer of mud, then we put on it a layer of pollution, and then we cover it by a layer of mud. And once it gets into our solar furnace, it melts down as lava, okay, as a volcano. I make a volcano out of the sun. And that lava takes the pollution into the mud and makes it as a rock at the outside product. So it's a way of making neutral pollution. But mud is not pollution. It's like your glass or your sand, or it's not really pollution. It's so thin that it disturbs. If you throw it into the sea, it disturbs life. But
I
it's not
understand.
going to pollute.
Okay. So but just to make sure it's clear, your focus now is the first application is just anyone that produces mud through an activity, an industrial activity.
This is not our main business, because mud, you get it either for free or either for very low price. So people would either tell us, take it away for free, or they would say, we pay you $10 a ton if you take it away. This is not our business. The business is to get those as a raw material for free, or even get paid a little. They can pay you 10 to $20 to take it away, and then make the money with the guys who have horrible waste. And with mixing it with our recipe and melting it, we make those horrible wastes neutral in a eco-friendly way.
Okay. That makes complete sense. So just summarizing it for the audience, which then makes
complicated.
sense.
Yeah, I agree.
That's why I wanted to tease it out, which is there's all this mud being created from all these construction projects and all these things. It's a very cheap input. So if I use the example of like you said, a recipe, you have the mud, which you're getting for little to no cost, and there's plenty of it being dumped everywhere. And then the problem you're solving and who you're getting paid from is any industrial that has this kind of nasty waste, and then you're putting it together and mixing it up and putting it in your solar furnace to create rock.
Yeah, that's it. Exactly. Neutral and clean rock.
Neutral.
What is even more complicated is we discovered that this rock, which is glass, okay, it is more glass than, glass is a rock. This glass, if you blend it to very thin, can replace 50% of cement.
Say that one more time.
So the rock that you get out of our process, if you blend it very thinly, it could replace 50% of cement. And cement is by far the most carbon eating industry.
Now that's a whole other conversation.
Yeah.
What stage is the technology at, the machine at? So just get us a sense of this, like what's the size and the temperature it can heat up to today?
So the lens is today is 2 square meters. And it could go all the way to 4,000 degrees. We did it by melting tungsten. Tungsten is 3,500 degrees to melt. It's the highest point of any metal. That's why we can say anything, just like in Joe Rogan's show.
Anything you want, man.
That's why there's two perspectives. Sometimes I think there's a great civilization that disappeared tens of thousands of years ago, and sometimes I doubt it. When you're scientific, you cannot believe something. You're always in between until you get really a good proof. Elon Musk does not believe into ancient theories. And you know what's his argument for that? It's because we never found tungsten in any ancient places. We never found tungsten. If you want to achieve a certain level of civilization, tungsten is by far the most difficult because it works with temperature. Melting something at 4,000, 3,000 degrees is very difficult by burning gas. You can do it by electricity, or you could do it by solar energy.
I got it.
Okay, that's the power of it. So with the 2 square meter stuff, we get to melt the most difficult metal to melt.
Got it. Give me just an example of one or two customers that you're working with or the
Okay.
type of waste that they have.
The guy I had yesterday, so 40 years old, he is in the recycling, the electronics recycling business. So he gets Wi-Fi boxes, PlayStations, any small computer, any small size electronics. He's the one to go to in France. And this guy was the CEO, and he sold his company to a large group. And now he's he takes care only of the environment aspect of his company, which is the perfect target. So he's with us. He's like, yeah, I have some startups here and there. Nobody's doing something interesting. This is bullshit. This is just da. And he was honest. He said, yeah, if you can do it for 400-500 bucks a ton, I will give it to you for a try. Like, what is the waste? What is the waste? He said, fiber optics. I get 50 tons per year of fiber optics from Belgium. It is classified, so he has no idea where it comes from. And he has to recycle this. And it's just a nightmare. So the only way to do it, and he knows it's very bad for the environment, and he gets to pay 1,000, 1,200 per ton to those large companies, so they put it into the ground illegally. Which everything I'm telling you, I'm not supposed to say, but I'm not naming. I'm not naming anyone.
Yeah, of course. This is important. You're telling people. Listen, one of the big premises behind all of this on Going Direct is our systems of production are opaque by design. They keep the consumer or the buyer completely disconnected from how we make stuff, and there's a reason why. So, telling these stories, I mean, you're literally in the shit, no joke. You know, so I would say what you just said out of anything that I would like people to take away from this so far in the conversation is that, right? It's like, this is just the reality, guys. This is how the world works, right?
Completely, and we're discovering it because imagine all the hassle. So there's the technical hassle, there's the business hassle, and then there's discovering that business, discovering construction, discovering. It's huge, Jordan. It was a crazy amount of work to understand that. But this guy,
No,
this
that's
guy
right.
is willing to do something, and this is our customer.
I gotcha.
That's what I'm trying to do as a business, because now the company needs to start making money. We have the technology, we have the market fit, we have the boundaries where we're not going to be eaten by the customer we're trying to acquire. It's small size companies. Yeah, to take away is even if you're informed and intelligent and you read everything, most of the information is hidden,
Yes.
particularly in the industry and in business. Because secret is that's people think it's money, the valuable thing. People think it's time, but in fact it's information. It's
All
always
information.
information. Yeah, it's crazy. And no one has a book, and no one has a fucking book, Jordan. You need to compare what everybody's saying. It's a hassle.
No, it's totally true. What is your vision for this?
For what do you mean?
For Heliosand, right? So
Ah, yeah,
is the idea that you're
yeah.
transforming
Okay,
waste, and so is the idea that
yeah,
one day you'll have
yeah. I get it.
companies all over the world will have
Yeah,
machines on site that have sun, of course.
yeah. It has to be there. So you will see that. I mean, the vision is pretty clear and very vivid. We use AI to create images of it. It's just crazy. Actually, AI understood stuff before us, because when we were creating that huge lens, we couldn't do a 3D model of it, okay, of the whole machine. We did the 3D of the lens, but the whole machine was complicated, took time. So we asked AI to help us. And during that time, we were designing with the Japanese guys the lens. The AI started drawing the lens with the hole in the middle all the time, and we're like, "Why is she doing this?" And we didn't get why. But every illustration it made, the lens wasn't full. It had a hole in the middle. And discussing with the Japanese, at the end, we concluded that if you have a 100 square meter lens, it has to be at a certain distance. Okay, there's a proportion you need to keep. The larger your lens is, the further the focal point would be. And because of this, after 5 or 7 meters, there's no point of having a lens in the middle because you cannot bend light so far with such a tight angle. Okay. So you have to have a hole in your design, which was, we were crazy when we understood that. The day we understood that, the illustration of AI understood before us, which is crazy. The vision is those large lens. There is. I think I would be way dead when this would happen, but there will be 3 centers, 3 worldwide center. One in south of Spain, in the desert of Spain. One in Texas or Mexico, probably Mexico, and one in Southeast Asia or Australia. Those large, probably the largest solar firms ever in the world, would be taking all the world's trash that is impossible to recycle, which is most of it. And the business would be to get it there, transform it, and it's going to be the future cement production. So you get out of those facilities cement because it's already made in a huge centralized manner, and I don't think this is going to stop for the construction. Unfortunately, governments and are too involved into this, so they have to clean it up. But the vision is there will be 3 centers in the world, maybe probably also one in Africa or in the Middle East somewhere, and taking in the world's pollution from the ocean, because you see all those startups that take pollution out of the water, but what do they do with it afterward?
Sure. Well, this is my problem with, when I say my problem, I think this is all good stuff, but I'm much more of a markets-based guy, right? And especially as an active angel investor, it's like I have to understand and see a path towards like a market-based solution. It's exactly what you said. It's like a lot of these circular economy companies, or anything around cycling, like they're like they're great projects, almost like great things to do, but there's no markets, like no market-based solution. So this idea of like then turning it into the world cement production is fascinating. So that's a long journey. I know a long ways ahead of you, but
Yeah,
and
you and I won't be alive, I think, if this happens. I think you and I, it would be a legacy. It would be a fantastic legacy, Jordan.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I applaud you for working with shit for the last few years. And no, I respect it. And for those of you who are listening to on audio, Rafik, I mean, he's in his workshop or in his office. It's a workshop. He's got the overalls on, so he's legit. The Carhartt hat.
Destroying the environment, what's the point? Yeah, it has to be fully circular, not only into the business, but it has to be also circular for the environment, which is not putting more waste, but taking away more waste. We need to reverse the counter. The counter is we put more waste, we put more waste, we put more waste. It's crazy. So we need to reverse it to we take away trash from the planet more and more.
Yeah, and that's the puzzle you're there to solve, right? How do you take away more and more waste and trash in the environment and create a markets-based approach and business model out of it that's actually solving a problem for the companies creating the waste? It's that simple. I mean, that simple, but that difficult. All right, we're going to wrap it up here. I'm going to give you a few rapid fire questions. You ready? Give us a name of someone. It could be anyone, in any domain that's really inspires either your work or your personal life.
Faraday, by far. Michael Faraday. Because I always thought that scientists were non-believers, but this guy was a believer in God like crazy, and he invented everything. He's actually, without him, there would be no Tesla. Yes, and Tesla invented really everything afterward. But Faraday invented the electric motor. He understood so many things, and he knew zero math. He was just a son of a blacksmith, and he worked at a shop where he put books together. And in London, London was the place for chemistry. So he read all the stuff, and then he understood it, and he was engaged into the Royal Society science, and he just exploded everything with knowing zero math.
Got it. Last podcast you listened to or watched?
Joe Rogan probably, or yeah, I think the
What was the
last one.
topic or episode?
Let me remember which one. The last one was with Musk. The last with Musk, and the topic was Tesla. What's happening with Tesla, and which is in my mind is something horrible. But yeah,
Don't worry, we're gonna come back on the following conversation will be over a glass of whiskey, and we're gonna talk all things non CSP. All right, tell people where they can find you or Heliosand and how to reach out.
Heliosand. Oh, easy. Go to heliosand.com. Helios like the god of the sun, and sand like sand with just one S in the middle. And please ask any questions. There's our emails. If you have any horrible trash that no one can deal with, we're the recyclers of the extreme. Okay.
Recyclers of the extreme. I
Yeah,
like it.
that's it. That's the deal. Yeah, of the future. We recycle. We have the real glasses because it's solar. We have to wear those glasses of the
Sure.
end of the world. So next podcast will be over whiskey over here with you with the mask and taking some pictures.
Let's do it. All right, my man.
Okay.
Be good.